you sit back and you think of the greats of music, who's the first artist that comes to mind? For most of the population, I would say that it's the band of four guys from Liverpool. Now, you may have a different candidate in mind in terms of the number one musical influence. It all depends on your own music taste. However, you would be remiss to not be fully indebted to the Fab Four for allowing tons of your favorite artists to even exist. So without a flicker of a doubt, the Beatles were, and still remain, the most influential musical act of all time. So Beatlemania, let's begin with that. February 9th, 1964, the Beatles made their live American TV debut on The Ed Sullivan Show, viewed by an estimated 73 million folks at home. And by April 4th, 1964, the Beatles held the first 5 spots on Billboard's Hot 100 chart. And the songs were Can't Buy Me Love, Twist and Shout, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Please Please Me. All fantastic songs. And John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr become instant sensations across America. And their famous heads of hair, also known as the mop tops, became a popularized hairstyle across the nation, which majorly contributed to the youth culture of the 1960s. And with that, let's touch on their cultural impact. So, the cultural impact of the Beatles. The Beatles arrived at a time of much uncertainty. Buddy Holly's death in 1959, also known as the day the music died, it left a huge void in rock and roll. There was just this dark cloud hanging over music. No one was really sure where it was going to go afterwards. And at that time, beach, surf, and sock hop music was really taking over the airwaves, so groups like the Beach Boys and artists like Frankie Avalon were really coming to the forefront of music, which kind of scared the youth culture. They weren't sure where music was really going to go after Buddy Holly's death. JFK was assassinated only 3 months prior to Beatlemania, which is absolutely insane to think about. And the civil rights movement was also picking up speed in the South. And during that, the Beatles offered somber, grieving Americans solace within their high-energy music, their playful spirit, and their really unique songwriting. And they were very adamant on spreading messages of peace, love, and they were anti-war. See songs like All You Need Is Love or Revolution. And with that came the prominence of drug experimentation, with marijuana being the focal point for young, stressed, war-era kids of that generation. Their song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds has been rumored for ages to be about LSD, which John Lennon aptly denied. He said it was based on a picture that his son Julian drew for him. So the Beatles, they practically invented music videos. And because due to their busy schedules, they would shoot videos in order to promote their new singles, and they would shop them around for promotion. So there would be no MTV without the Beatles. Now let's talk about the music itself, which is the most important topic when talking about the Beatles. So their songs and their songwriting style. All 4 members of the Beatles, they were deeply influenced by rock and roll pioneers Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, and Little Richard. And they incorporated those influences into their music while simultaneously they were reinventing music and creating their own unique sound, which spanned across a multitude of genres. They did pay homage in their earlier days by recording covers of blues and rock songs they loved. And I believe that Twist and Shout even was a cover of an old blues or rock song. The music they made, it was based on what they would listen to. However, they did combine those influences with much of their own experimentation. John Lennon and Paul McCartney, they are renowned as the greatest songwriting duo to ever grace this earth. Lennon and McCartney wrote and published around 180 songs together from 1962 to 1969. They shared the composition of both the music and lyrics, which was extremely uncommon at the time. Most songwriters in that era would split the music and the lyrics. So one would take music, one would take lyrics. But Lennon and McCartney, they forged their own path, and they came together and really helped to create a new format of how music was written in that time period. But let's not discount George Harrison as well, because he wrote some of the Beatles' hugest hits from their later years. So songs such as While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Here Comes the Sun, and Something. 1974, Frank Sinatra actually said that something was the greatest love song of the last 50 years. Huge statement from such a world-class artist such as Frank Sinatra. And each song of theirs on their albums is vastly different from one another. So no one song sounds the same at all. So take Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, for example, with, they have a song like She's Leaving Home versus When I'm 64 versus Within You Without You versus Lovely Rita. None of these songs sound the same at all, which is very attributed to their knack for experimenting with different genres and different styles of music. So let's actually talk about their creations of new genres and subgenres. They really did invent a lot of new genres, they influenced a lot of genres, and they just altered them altogether. They may have been influenced by their predecessors, like I stated before, but they created their own sound. They never shied from experimentation. So for one, hard rock and heavy metal. Prime examples of this would be Twist and Shout, Helter Skelter, I Want You, She's So Heavy, and Oh Darling. John's gravelly wail on Twist and Shout alone was the precursor to hard rock. And Helter Skelter, which was mostly written by Paul McCartney, that was the prototype for all heavy metal bands that followed. Psychedelic rock. Prime examples of this would be Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Within You Without You, and Tomorrow Never Knows. Progressive rock. Some examples of this would be A Day in the Life, Eleanor Rigby, Day Tripper, and Rain. With the Day in the Life in particular, they experimented with song form. So there were more elements than just the standard song, just the standard verse, chorus, and bridge, which is just the basic song form. And they added in like separate key changes and lush orchestration, while also weaving in brilliant storytelling, which most of the lyrics were done by John Lennon on that song. Power pop, another huge one. So examples of that would be She Loves You, Penny Lane, Good Day Sunshine, and All My Loving. All amazing songs. All right, let's move on to their accolades. So the Beatles have the most #1 albums on the Billboard 200 chart of any popular artist or group. They also have the most #1 songs on Billboard's Hot 100 chart of any popular artist or group. So 19 #1 albums, 20 #1 songs. This is a feat that has not been topped and probably never will be. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at the 3rd annual ceremony in 1988. And each member of the Beatles were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as solo artists as well. So this makes the Beatles the only band to have ever had each member of the band inducted both as a band and as respective solo artists. Another feat that probably will never ever be topped. So as you can see, the Beatles and their influence are astronomical. The world as we know it would probably cease to exist without those brilliant songbirds from Liverpool, England. Between their cultural influence, incredible songwriting, genre bending, and chart-topping skills, there was no musical act more influential than that of the Beatles.